Foremost human rights organization, Committee for the Defense of Human Rights, marked its 30 years of resilient commitment to the defense and protection of human rights on Thursday at City Heights Hotel, 6 Sheraton Link Road, Okpebi, Ikeja, Lagos. The Cdhr 30th anniversary themed chronicling the struggle and identifying the way forward, featuring lectures, book launch, documentary, etc., was celebrated to commemorate the founding of the organization, founding members, and other comrades who have passed on during the struggle. The event was celebrated to reflect on efforts of individuals and reaffirmation of definite commitment to the defense of human rights. Since its inception in April 1989, Cdhr has played crucial roles in ensuring the end of military rule in Nigeria and the enthronement of democratic governance. Speaking with pressmen at the occasion, the Cdhr National President, Malachy Ugwummadu, described the organization's journey in the last 30 years as eventful, huge prospects and possibilities of fulfillment.
30 years of Cdhr fighting for human rights. How has it been?
A mixed bag. Mixed bag in the sense that only 2-3 weeks ago, less than a fortnight, we also had the extrajudicial killing of one Kolede Johnson. That killing had also been repeated even after that murder. So what we're actually doing is to commemorate, the 30th anniversary, because it is not yet Uhuru. The rights we set out to protect and defend are also under siege. Even when we have strategically made some advancement, including developing and deepening the legal regime, where we don't just have the Constitution now, we have a fast-track fundamental right enforcement procedure rules to enable us access and be able to deepen our democratic space. But it is important to mark a day like this, just so that we're able to relate with the provenance of the struggle and chart the necessary course moving forward. Our country has become sufficiently challenged in a way that we must leverage on all the strengths that we have shown, all the mistakes that we have made, but taking full advantage of the comparative advantage that we have to be able not just to identify the future, but to drive it. And 30 years unbroken involvement in the reinvention process is such that we can't back out from the question of nation building. It is a time to renew, to reinvigorate, and give concrete expressions to our convictions the way they were when we started. So, in a nutshell, it's humbling for me. In 1989, I should be in the secondary school. But today I have the privilege to lead one of the foremost human rights organizations in the country that has perhaps the best of leaders in the past, from Dr. Beko Ramson-Kuti to Professor Festus Iyayi, who was a former ASU president, to Femi Falan, a senior advocate of Nigeria, internationally recognized legal practitioner, to Professor Loki Akaruze. You have, after him, you have Benga Wosode, who's a lawyer. You also have Comrade Sonny Enenwadi. You have Olashukbo Ojo. And just like the Catholic Church that began with St. Peter's, we knew where we started. We knew from Dr. Beko and Sonkuti, today I am the national president. So it's humbling, it's an opportunity, although it's quite challenging. But we are determined and resolved to continue.
One of your talking points is a new way to collaborate. What do you intend to do?
Well,
what's the new thing you're going to do?
Well, we are sufficiently skilled in not just networking but collaboration. However, the dynamics of the society is such that detect a fresh approach to that. And the central theme of our program, of our anniversary, is chronicling the struggle, identifying the future, such that we don't just remain where we are in terms of what has happened. We are now resolved to create new vistas, open up fresh collaborations and partnership to be able to weather the peculiarity of the challenge that we presently have. And it used to work in the past. It's not fresh. There were moments when we have CD, Campaign for Democracy. It was an umbrella body. Dr. Becker was the chairman. We had UAD, led by Dr. Olise Abakuba. We had JACON, led by Chief Gani Fahimi, Joint Action Committee of Nigeria. I was, even from the university, the National Deputy Secretary, 1998, 2000. And today you have JAF, and so on and so forth. So we might be looking in that direction to galvanize not just the energy, but the resentment of the Nigerian people, and build a platform that will become formidable and irresistible in the political calculation of Nigeria. But above all, we must find a way, necessarily so, to ensure that we assess and deal with the political question in this country. Because save and until that does, we will merely be reacting.
Senior advocate of Nigeria and human rights activist Femi Falana, while speaking with journalists at the occasion on the state of insecurity in some parts of the country and the detainment of the leader of Islamic Movement of Nigeria, Shait El-Zakzaki, advised the government to respect the rights of its citizens.
The challenge ahead, as I did make clear today, is that genuine democrats in our country can no longer limit their involvement in the political development of our country to the defense of rights, human rights. Because you may have the best of rights in your constitution, guaranteed by the constitution. If those who are in power have no confidence in the rule of law, do not believe in the rule of law, human rights cannot be respected. Therefore, we need more people who are committed to democratic principles and defense of human rights to go to government and actualize and ensure that the rights of our people are observed and respected, particularly the socio-economic crisis of the majority of our people. Because like Professor Akonyebode made clear today, the right of education, the freedom of expression, means nothing to people who are not educated, who are illiterate. Just like the right to life means absolutely nonsense, absolutely nothing to people who are sick and they cannot access, and they can't get to hospital, So that is why we must no longer allow the ruling class to draw a line of dichotomy between political and civil rights and social and economic rights.
The 2019 election witnessed a lot of trampling of human rights, especially voters and the electorate, and also journalists were also harassed by the politicians. How can the Cdhr come in future elections?
The Cdhr, no, not about future elections. The Cdhr is collaborating with the Independent National Electoral Commission to ensure that all the thugs that were arrested and they are sponsored are prosecuted.
How about journalists?
Unless we fight impunity, there's no way we're going to get it right. For journalists who were detained or harassed, we also advise the Nigerian Union of Journalists, Nigerian Guild of Editors, and the Nigerian Proprietors Association of Nigeria to take up such matters. Unless we are prepared to defend our rights, nobody will respect them.
You're involved with the case of El-Zakzaki and he's still in custody. What do you say about it?
Happily, the members of the Shiite movement have continued to remind Nigerians that their leader, Ugwummadu and his wife, are still being detained illegally by the Nigerian state, in spite of the orders of the Federal High Court that they be released unconditionally. It was a dubious attempt by the government to douse detention generated by the legality of the detention that the Kaduna state government was asked to charge the two of them to court. Arraign them in court. But the government has not been able to put his case across, because over 200 members of the Shia movement have been tried, discharged, and acquitted for the same offense. Mind you, those who murdered the armed troops that murdered 347 Nigerians and buried their dead bodies in a shallow grave, an unmarked grave in Mango village in Kaduna State, have not been prosecuted, contrary to the recommendations of the Garba Judicial Commission for Inquiry set up by the Kaduna State government.
Okay, sir.
And apart from the Ugwummadu case, you're also aware of the case of Dasuki, Colonel Sambo Dasuki, who has been ordered to be granted bail by the Federal High Court, the FCT High Court, and the ECOWAS Court. But the Buhari administration has continued to treat such orders with contempt. There is also the case of about 56 Cameroonian refugees and asylum seekers who were illegally expelled from Nigeria. In January last year, the Federal High Court, on the 1st of March this year, ordered that they be brought back to Nigeria. Again, the government has ignored the order.
Okay, sir, not to interrupt you, sir. This issue of extrajudicial killings, what happened 3 weeks ago, even up to Sunday last week in the Otta here, where we also...
I'm sure you are aware that Nigeria has been protesting against the execution of some Nigerians in some Asian and Arab countries. That is the height of hypocrisy. Because while you are trying to defend or challenge the execution, judicial execution of your own citizens abroad, at home, the government has turned its eye. The government has continued to allow extrajudicial killing of Nigerians by trigger-happy policemen and soldiers. Not only that, after the parade of armed robbery suspects or kidnapped suspects and others, majority of the armed robbers are illegally executed by all the police commands in the country. We've just got the assurance of the current Inspector General of Police that parade of suspects will no longer be allowed. And I do hope that all indicted armed robbers and armed robbery suspects will now be taken to court. But they are never taken to court anywhere, any longer in Nigeria. They're simply secretly executed in the dead of the night.
So, the Nigerians have really lost interest, trust in the judicial system.
I don't agree with you. When you say Nigerians have lost, when did you take your census? When did you conduct your program, survey, to make you come to the conclusion that Nigerians have lost confidence in the judiciary? There are people who have lost confidence, but don't say Nigerians. Majority of Nigerians don't go to court because they don't have the means. So when you say Nigeria, you are talking of the elite.
So how can you make the court accessible to the general?
Sir?
How can you make the court accessible to the general masses?
It's to ensure that organizations like the Cdhr and others educate our people to appreciate that they now have the rights under the law to ask for lawyers to defend their cases, criminal and civil, at the expense of the Nigerian state. But Nigerians are not aware of that yet. The Legal Aid Council is funded by the government to provide services to indigent citizens at no cost to them. Each of the state government has also set up the office of the public defender to also render pro bono services to our people. So it is now left for Cdhr and other human rights bodies to educate our people, to enlighten our people, to appreciate their rights under the law. It's only when you are aware of your right that you can go to the relevant government agencies to provide services, free legal services to Nigerians. Thank you.
Responding to the controversy surrounding the three arms of government and failure of the present administration to tackle the issue of insurgency, as promised, Professor Julius Inhovbere, the incoming House of Representatives in Owan Federal Constituency, Edo State, gave his views on the response of the government on the development.
Spaces, the very little openings for women and the youth tells me that we still have a very, very long way to go in terms of the rights of the people.
Sir, by May, you'll be going to the National Assembly. Being a member or a part of the Cdhr, what do you want to, which bills or policies do you want to set in motion for the rights of the people?
Well, I am not going there with what you may call an empty mind. I have a reason why I wanted to go there. First is to be part and parcel of making pro-people laws, pro-environment, pro-gender. We want to see the kind of interventions we can make to put Nigeria on the right course. To, of course, for me, establish a different dialogue between the legislature and the executive. Because a situation where you pass motions, you pass bills, and the executive throws them aside is not healthy for Nigeria. But more importantly, is to reflect the consciousness, the pedigree that I hold in terms of the struggle for ordinary people, for youth and women empowerment, community development, accountability, social justice, human rights, and democratization. If I can intervene in these areas sufficiently, I think I would have made a mark.
Speaking about Kaduna State, you hear about the extrajudicial killings there and the killings of 8 workers recently at the Kajuru Castle. So do you think this is a systemic failure or it has some political undertones?
Well, there are both ways. There is a systemic failure. We cannot run away from that. In terms of both the security and the leadership. The security is to provide information for the leadership. The governor cannot know what is going to happen. But in this country, for the God's sake, we have SSS, we have NIA, whether it is foreign or whatever. We have police, they have different branches. We have civil defense, we have the army, we also have an intelligence division. For God's sake, if they cannot do the job, then we have problem. So I think at that level, there's a systemic and institutional failure. We cannot run away from that. But on the other hand, there's also a political dimension. There are people who also want to ensure that Kaduna State is ungovernable. And so, it will not be out of place to suspect that they sponsor, encourage, accommodate, fund, or tolerate those kind of extrajudicial killings. And I think those should be condemned in every way possible.
These three arms of government, the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, has been said not to be working together. What advice can you give to them, especially this present administration?
Well, the problem, last time, you had the minority government governing the National Assembly, so to speak, even though some of them were APC people, but the way they conducted themselves did not show they were really APC people. There was no synergy between the National Assembly and the executive. There was no communication, no dialogue, no trust. But this time, we are determined to change that. Those of us who are coming in new are in the majority in the House. I'm speaking for the House. And I believe that we come with a different mindset. We are not happy at what has happened. Nigerians have paid dearly for it. So we want to ensure that without ceding our autonomy and independence as a legislative arm, we open credible, sustainable, mutually beneficial lines of communication so that they respect our motions, they respect our bills. But if there is communication even before a bill is passed, there will be understanding, and there should be no incidents of president refusing to sign several bills. So things will be different this time.
Lastly, would you tell me that the present administration, talking about the administration of President Ugwummadu Buhari, has failed in terms of providing full security for the citizens of Nigeria?
Well, you see, in some ways, it would look as if it has failed. But on the other hand, imagine if they were doing nothing about the situation, what it would look like now. I'm happy they were able to move on the Kaduna end. In the Niger Delta, we no longer have those bombings, etc. In the southwest, the battles between OPC and the various groups are no longer there. So the challenge is the herdsmen issue and the bandits. And luckily, they've identified the sources and those who are identifying them. And I think they're moving towards putting a stop to that. But they don't have a lot of time. Nigerians are impatient. They are angry about this. No Nigerian life will be lost because of insecurity. And I believe that, having been re-elected, he has less than a year to settle the security issues and let Nigerians have the confidence in him as the true leader and a holistic, complete leader.
30 years of fighting for human rights, of the struggle, how has it been for you?
Ooh, lifelong struggle. I think it is a little disheartening that in spite of the blood, sweat and tears, the sacrifice of so many, we still haven't really got it right in terms of the understanding of our people about their rights. It's much more challenging to fight for the rights of others. It's much easier when people are fighting for their own rights. Every Nigerian, man, woman and child, must make it their responsibility to understand those rights. It's not up to the human rights community to liberate or free the citizens of this country. The citizens must free themselves. We are in a good position to educate, to support, to provide some structure around legal infractions, organizing lawyers that would defend people individually. But if the citizen, him or herself, doesn't understand his or her rights ab initio, then it becomes an uphill task. So I think that has been my perception over these 30 years. And the fact that the military was the first antagonist, the opposition we were facing. They were the enemy. We, the people, were united. Whether you were a civil rights fighter, you were a citizen, you were a politician, whoever, we all were in one camp against the military. And one of the mistakes the civil rights movement made was not organizing themselves better in terms of post-military activities. I mean, the South Africans were a lot smarter. They formed the ANC, and they were able to capture the political space. But the civil rights movement in Nigeria was more focused on getting rid of the military and then allowing the chips to fall where they may. I had various conversations with Ganifa, Wehimi, Ubutu, Kiwe, and all the leaders, Beko and myself, had a number of long discussions about what to do after getting rid of the military. But the consensus then was that Nigerians were really smart people, you know, they're going to sort it out. But they haven't. And I'm looking at the young people today, really smart, dynamic, brave, courageous, young Nigerians, male and female, who are doing incredible things wherever they are. I want them to organize better, to be more knowledgeable, to be less happy. We're the happiest people in the world. And also, don't be happy, but take some time off the fun and the twittering and the WhatsApping and the dancing and video games. Take some time off to educate yourself, to empower yourself, because the people who are there now are occupying your space. And unless you are prepared and organized, and by being prepared, I mean you have the capacity to govern, you have to be knowledgeable, you have to have skills, you have to have that intellectual quotient that you're going to bring, and you have to have, most importantly, that principled focus, that ability to discipline yourselves. Because if you do not discipline yourselves now, you will fall into the same trap that the people that are there fall into. Because if you don't come from a background where your principles and values have been molded, it is very, very easy to just fall into the trap of, oh my goodness, you know, what shall I do? I've spent 150 million to get here now. I must recover it. Why should you mortgage yourself to get into a position that you have to recover from? So these are the issues that I think young people must begin to engage themselves about and organize themselves. You are far more than any one of these people. If you had supported one candidate in the last election, they would have won, hands down. So organize better, prepare better, be more knowledgeable, and get ready to take position. And I'm saying it clearly, to take position. It's not going to be given to you.
Yes, looking at the numbers of people present in this program, we have more of men than women. What advice would you give to women out there?
Women are always the silent majority, working in the background, preparing the future, because they look after the children. So I am encouraging our fellow members in the Cdhr and others who are working. It's not just Cdhr, there are many groups that are working in governance. Rights is just one aspect of governance. Leadership is another one. Youth empowerment is another one. There's so many civil society organizations working in the country. Let us put women, not because I'm a woman, because I know the burden the Almighty has given us. Most of us will be equally irresponsible, quote unquote, as the men if we didn't have children. It is by the time you have children that it sinks into you the various things you have to do to bring up another human being. So we must begin to engage more with the women, the girls, before they become mothers. Make sure that they have the capacity, they have the knowledge, they have the competence, and they have the ability to withstand the various challenges and to be able to do that role that the Almighty has given them, which is to educate and to nurture the next generation of human beings. So it is critical. I think Hillary Clinton said it. Human rights are women's rights, and women's rights are human rights. If you do not have that balance of bringing the female gender into the fold of development, then you're going to fail. You're going to fail. No doubt about it.